This meeting is being recorded.
God, that is aggressive. That is the most aggressive I've ever seen, and I just can't seem to get rid of her ever. But
that was you.
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 13 of season 2 of the Yellow Card Podcast, presented to you by Student Union Sports. Make sure you check them out, studentunionsports.com. Website full of fun and amazing college writers, independent writers as well, bringing you all the content that you need to know on a daily on sports that you follow, whether it's football, basketball, soccer like us, baseball, whatever it is. Make sure that you go follow them, studentunionsports.com. If you're watching from YouTube, you can see our number one fan of the podcast is back with us for 2023, the first time in 2023, and I'm sure it's going to be the first of many to come. Sam, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
I am doing excellent. I don't know what Chris is over there counting, but I can tell you it's almost sheep, the same way that Liverpool is counting these days. By the same token, if you're listening to us on Spotify, now you just heard the voice of one of the most diehard Manchester United fans, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on any other platform that you may follow her. Sam is here with us. We got a loaded episode today. I know we're going to want to talk about the action over the weekend in the Premier League. We had some major games that went on. Liverpool and Chelsea facing off for the first time 2023. Manchester United taking on Arsenal. And we got some major news breaking out of the Premier League as well, as we found out earlier today that Frank Lampard has been sacked from his position as manager of Everton. Which one do we want to get started when it comes to the Premier League? I'm actually, you know what? I'm gonna actually let Sam elect this one. Ladies first.
Why aren't you going, Diego?
I don't have my nails done. Sorry.
Me either.
Figures.
Let's talk Liverpool Chelsea.
Yeah, that was
Let's
a tough
not
game.
say we did. God.
That was a tough game to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I got up early for that.
Well, what do you think, Sam? Because I mean, there was a lot of new things to be featured in that game as Liverpool, facing off for the first time with Chelsea. You kind of wondered how they would stack up to them. There's really not much of a difference between the two when you look at the table. So what were you expecting between these two sides?
It's not that I had high expectations that either of them were going to perform well or be playing good football, but damn, I did not think it was going to be that boring. I was watching it and I was like, I think everyone kind of had the same feeling, especially because it was on so early. We're all watching this and we're like, what are we watching? I'm like, I want to turn this off and turn on something else. It was just horrific, but I'm not really surprised at the result necessarily. So I don't know.
Chris, what do you think?
I think I would have much rather watched a men's intramural game than that, whatever that was on this past weekend, because it was brutal. It was brutal. Both teams are probably in the worst form that I've seen in quite some time. Mm-hmm. It's not great.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at, even if you didn't watch the game, you can just look at the overall stats of the game and you can just tell it was just the long and devastatingly boring kind of matchup. I mean, you're looking at 3 shots on target versus 2 in between these two teams that have what are known to be pretty good midfield systems as well as forward systems in both of their institutions. You look at possession, 47 and 53%, really not much that differentiates the two. Obviously a lot of fouls, yellow cards here and there. But other than that, really nothing that stood out for either side. I think the only thing that I can probably say for either side is actually Chelsea's new signing, Mikhailo Mudryk coming in and kind of adding a little bit of flair to their offense. But I'll be frankly honest, I think Chelsea is 2 pieces away from building the offense or recovering the offense that they could actually have after all the new signings that they have done. I mean, you're looking at Christopher and Kuku in there. You're looking at a lot of new signings in there, a lot of new faces. This is a team that, if correctly managed by Graham Potter and healthy, could actually be a top 5 team within the next season for sure. For Liverpool, I'm kind of wondering what is expected of them in this January transfer window. Are they going to splash some money? Are they going to use some loans? What are they going to do? We know that Arthur Melo is supposed to be expected back within the next few weeks as he's recovering rather fast. But Jones, I guess the question is over to you from a Liverpool standpoint. What are some names that, if you were Jurgen Klopp at the moment and the January transfer window's here, what are some names that you are immediately working on making sure that you get onto your squad added right away?
I mean, there's been names that I've brought up, man. It's just, it's not going to happen. I'm not even going to get my hopes up anymore, because what's going to happen is this. We'll get like 2 transfers, and there'll be these young guys that haven't proved anything anywhere in the midfield, just to try to say, oh yeah, we bolstered our midfield a little bit. But in reality, I think what's going to happen is one or two things either going to happen. They're going to panic and they're going to overpay for someone that they definitely shouldn't be paying for, or they're going to say, you know what, we're going to wait until the summer and throw so much money at Jude Bellingham he can't say no. It's a waste of time, because you have teams like United who are getting better. You have Arsenal who's playing in tip-top form right now. You have Newcastle who's performing very highly right now. You have Tottenham who picked up a big W today. They're back on track.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of teams that are better than you right now. And I'm sorry, but we can't be relying on guys like Jordan Henderson and James Milner in the midfield anymore.
No, and I mean, to be frankly honest, I think the injuries are also part of the reason as to why Liverpool has kind of been stagnant all season long. You got a decent loan deal out of Arthur Melo for him to be injured within practice, not even be injured during a game, but during a practice, which is the most annoying way to have one of your loans that is suspected at large to be a part of the system and be missing just like that. But they're frankly honest, out of the other signs that you guys have had, Cody Gakpo, I mean, kind of waiting for him to be of some influence there. I'm kind of, in a way, I'm almost kind of glad that United kind of did not fully drop the bag onto him. But in a way, kind of a little bit ticked off too, because with the system that United has now, I think Cody Gakpo could have actually been an influence for our game, because we're still struggling to have a natural number 9 in our system. Why don't we transition over to that?
Always works his way back to United on this show. Always does.
No, but why don't we transition back to that game though? Because I think overall, out of the slate of games that were played this weekend, without any bias, whether you're an Arsenal fan or whether you're a United fan or any type of fan, you know that this was.
Oh, come on! I told you that going into last week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. Just saying, it was absolutely the game of the week. Sam, what we'll start off with you, and then we'll go over to Jones. I'll end it.
It was definitely a tough loss, but at the same time, like, you have to be happy with that result if you're a United fan. You really do. And if you look too on the aggregate, we're still up 1 goal, I believe. So there's that. But I feel like the problem with United is if they go up a goal, they just stop playing. And obviously, like, when you're playing Arsenal, especially, why are you doing that? It was very frustrating to watch. But I'm taken away that I'm happy with that result, which, sucks to say with a loss, but still.
Okay. Jones, what do you think?
I think we're looking forward to a few months ahead. I think we're going to look back, and this is going to be one of the crucial victories that Arsenal had at this point in the season that led them to winning the Premier League title. I think this was huge for them. They needed this 3 points. They got it, and the way that they did it, listen, they didn't play their best game, and Manchester United laid it all out on the pitch. But at the end of the day, Arsenal somehow got it done. 3-2 victory. They move on. they're halfway point right now. They're very clear ahead in first place right now. I think you got to give him Arteta credit. He's done everything they've needed him to do, and they just added Leandro Trossard, who is a very talented young forward up front that is going to make Premier League defenders' lives living hells.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at it two different ways. For Arsenal, if you're an Arsenal fan right now, you're thrilled, you're over the moon, sharing with joy and all that stuff. But to be fairly honest here, though, this is a project that Mikel Arteta has had 3 years to finally get the results that he's getting over an Erik ten Hag who has had about 6 months to show discipline, to show physique, to show qualities of this team that we all knew were there, but were not truly exposed to their full maximum, like they're finally being seen right now. I think for United, if you're a United fan, you kind of worry about two things. Are we relying tremendously on the abilities that Casemiro has as a center defensive mid? And when are we finally going to make a decision, sell the club, and get the money that we need to fund for a number 9? Because it is what's missing for Manchester United at this point. I think the only other thing that you could say is find a reliable backup goalie, because the more loans that we continue to do, like Martin Dubravka and God, I even forgot the backup goalie that we just signed because I have never even heard of him. Butland, something like that.
Is it? Oh, see, I was thinking Tom Heaton.
No, I'm not even thinking of Tom Heaton. I always almost forget that he's part of the team because he's barely ever utilized. But I mean, I think that if you are Erik ten Hag, you kind of need to start focusing on the next phase in the net for Manchester United. You can't continue to sign all these older gentlemen like Tom Heaton and people that have yet to be developed like James Butland.
Did you see who they're going to look at though?
No, I have not seen any new reports on backup goalies or anything like that, but I think it's immediately a responsibility that as a manager and as the sporting director of Manchester United, you kind of need to start looking into, along with many other aspects. I think we showed a lot of fight in the second half, but I agree much to your comment. Minute that we score, we kind of lay on our laurels and remember that, it kind of takes us a moment to remember that there's more pressure to be added. I will say, though, in terms of physicality, I was ratherly impressed with what Manchester United had to show against an Arsenal team that was basically more rested than Manchester United. Not to draw any excuses, both very big clubs that should be headed face-to-face, but when Manchester United is competing in all 4 tournaments versus an Arsenal that's competing in 2 or 3, it's kind of difficult to justify that, physicality also didn't come into play here.
I mean, like you said, though, if you want to pinpoint a problem at this point, it really is De Gea. It is.
Yeah. I think, I mean, looking at it, the Crystal Palace, for example, the first goal that Crystal Palace got, that was just stupid goal to be allowed. But then after that, it's just, I don't know. There's a lot going on with this team right now that still needs Ten Hag's steady hand at the helm of things. I think this is the coach that you need to trust. What's taken Arsenal about 3 years could very well take Ten Hag only 1 year, and next year Manchester United could be the force to be reckoned with, as Thierry Henry mentioned on a interview with CBS Sports. But other than that, I think there's still a lot of improvement to be made. If you're Manchester United, okay, you're happy you're in 4th place, but you should be happier to be able to battle for 2nd place at least, because right now the title, if Arsenal continue to be at the form that they are, it's already completely out of reach.
I just love that you're using my argument against me from earlier in the season when it comes to Arsenal, because you told me I had
Which
thinking
one?
about
Which
the
argument?
competitions. I said Arsenal is going to be one of the freshest teams in the Premier League, and they're going to benefit from it because of the fact that they're not playing Champions League, they're not playing Europa League, they're not playing any of those big tournaments, and it's shown. I said that to you at the beginning of the season, and you looked at me, you're like, but they're gonna have so much time off.
Right, they're gonna have a lot of time off, and I also mentioned that discipline will have to be a major factor for them, and that's what's been a major factor for them. When you're signing names that are known to be developing, when you have an academy that's developing really well, as we saw with Eden and Ketia yesterday, for example, you have reasons to finally be a working system like Arsenal has it. You have somebody who's enforcing discipline in Mikel Arteta. He had to make some very rash decisions over the course of 3 years. For example, letting go of Pierre Aubameyang, who everybody thought was going to be the face of Arsenal as a club, letting go of several others and making some decisions that were questioned, getting 2 years of continuously being battered as that's not the coach of our organization. Everybody wanted Arsene Wenger to come back immediately when that's not even fair to somebody who clearly has a very clear picture of what he wants for this club. I think for Arteta this year, you can't take away the credit that he's done exactly what needs to be done to manage the club.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it whether you're an Arsenal fan or whether you're not, it's just being reasonable. It's being a football fan, really.
Football is good when they're good. When they're good, football is great. When they're not good, it takes the hit a little bit.
Yeah, I mean
didn't
that's
think they'd get to this point. I thought he was going to get sacked.
yeah, and I mean let's make it even more fair of a point. Look at how scrutinized Pep Guardiola is being scrutinized right now because he has Erling Haaland. Everybody expected that because he has Erling Haaland that they were untouchable, that nobody could beat them or nothing. But they're 5 points behind Arsenal, but every week it shows a new struggle. They get the results, but every week there's a new struggle developing for them.
But you and I both agreed that the one thing that was going to screw them in the end was how many people they were losing. They were losing a lot of depth, and that's exactly what they lost.
Yeah.
They lost Gabriel Jesus. They lost Raheem Sterling. Those are two huge depth pieces that they've had that they traded for Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland's great, don't get me wrong. He's got 24, 25 goals in the Prem right now, which is fantastic. Could win the Golden Boot. Doesn't mean anything if they don't win the title.
And they're losing youth in the back as well. Look at what they lost with Zinchenko. Zinchenko's now one of the most essential pieces defensively for Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
So, overall, when it comes to Manchester City, yes, Zinchenko was at Manchester City.
Isn't he still in Manchester?
Alexander Zinchenko is an Arsenal, but
dude, my brain is not working today. Hold on.
He was in the starting lineup with Ben White, Saliba, and Gabriel in the back four for Arsenal this past weekend.
Oh, I completely blanked on his first name. That was a different one. That's on me.
All right. Now let's move on to Everton. They are in a very rough position, and I was trying to reach out to our Everton fan. Unfortunately, he could not be on tonight. He's got a lot going on. He's got a lot going on. He's got a lot on his mind, especially as Everton is one of his deepest passions when it comes to the game of football. But what are we all thinking? Who are 3 names that come to mind immediately for you to replace Frank Lampard at Everton and hope that they can just float out of relegation zone?
Oh, there's one easily that it will turn the heads of everybody in the Prem.
I already know who it is, who you think it is, but go for it.
Say it. Let's see it. Let's see how alike we are. What do you think?
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
No. That
Okay.
See, I didn't even think of that name. No, I was thinking of the other team that's fighting relegation that had their manager let go. I'm talking about Marcelo Bielsa.
Yes and no. But what other names come up to you?
To me?
Yeah.
God, I mean, if we're looking at it, I mean, if you asked me like this time last year, I would have said Rafa Benitez just because.
Oh my God.
Honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised if it's another English legend. Like I wouldn't be surprised if if he takes the interview with them this time and they just offer him the job, it's Wayne Rooney.
Okay. Yeah, I like it.
Interesting.
Anybody else?
Him or what's his
Excuse me.
face? Well, I would say David Moyes if they lost this weekend, he got sacked. But I think
either team was. I think either team was gonna be making this decision at this point. Both
I
teams.
had a weird suspicion that if they drew, both managers are going to get fired, and that would have been the first time in Premier League history.
Yep.
What's his face? He used to be the Wolves guy.
Oh, Nuno. Spirito
Nuno
Santo?
could potentially be there too.
Kind of like that.
I could see that. Yeah.
What about you, Sam? What are some of your thoughts?
The LA thing is interesting. The thing is, this isn't their problem. Their problem is their owners. And they've had how many managers? 7 in the last 6 years. It's ridiculous. And at that point, you have to take some accountability and say, it's not the manager that's the problem. It's the owner.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. Rafa Benitez was definitely the problem.
Well, yeah.
That was the start of the problem for Everton.
Oh, no, for sure. But the fact that Ancelotti walked was the second that Everton was going back down, back to the middle-esque of the table.
Okay, but if you're Carlo Ancelotti, though, and you know that Everton is about 5 years away, at that point when Ancelotti had Everton, they were about still 5 years or so away from being a team that could compete within the top 5 of the league at the time. But yet Real Madrid is knocking at the back of your door saying, hey, your job is sitting back here whenever you want it. Wouldn't you do the same thing?
Exactly.
Well, obviously, yeah, but I'm just saying.
At his age, when you're looking to retire at a high note, wouldn't you just do the same thing?
And that's going to be a problem again. Who's going to be willing to take this job, knowing they're years away? How strong, the top 4 or 5 teams are right now. How far they're away from being even top 6, and knowing the issues with the owners. No one wants this job.
Yeah,
listen,
I think
as someone who took over Everton as on FIFA, all they really realistically had to do was make Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison stars, sell them off at high prices, and then build from there. They haven't done that. They let Richarlison go for probably a lot cheaper than they could have got for him. Calvert-Lewin's still there. He's been banged up. He's inconsistent. I think realistically, if you're Everton, you're not going to win a title within the next 10 years. So I think realistically, you're playing for 2 things. One, you're playing for Europa League, because if you can get Europa League, that'd be great. 2, you're playing for hardware in the Carabao and the FA Cup. That's what you're doing. You just need a manager that's willing to say, okay, this is what I want to accomplish with them. Let's see how we can do this. So if that's some of these managers, then there's potential that they could be a good fit. For example, you know who's probably the odds-on favorite that would be a good name is the old Burnley manager, Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
Mediocrity at his finest, was perfectly fine being at the middle of the table.
Yeah. So what are some names that popped in your mind, Sam, when it comes to Everton?
I kind of actually like Ole as a fit there, because like you said, someone who's going to be okay with mediocrity, and someone who's going to be okay with getting a trophy just to get a trophy, and knowing that that's kind of all you're going to be capable of for the next decade, potentially.
Okay. Who else comes to mind?
I genuinely can't think of anyone who's going to be willing to take this job. I really don't. I mean, what do they also have to offer in terms of a package? Because we know that's kind of an issue too, with the owners, with management. What are they going to be able to sell to someone?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could look too at someone who's willing to kind of come out of a retirement type of thing. someone who's not looking to take this as a job, but more of just like a project.
Okay. So for me, I have 3 to 4 different names that come to mind. One that I don't see realistically happening because of the potential that he actually has to manage some other clubs and be back to the relevancy that he once had, which would be Thomas Tuchel. That would be an immediate name that comes to mind to solve the issues there, but I don't see him taking that job seriously and staying there for the entirety of his contract. He's got potentials to go anywhere else. He could go to Barcelona, he could go to Real Madrid, he could go to Atletico, he could go back to the German league, he could go anywhere else really at this point. So I don't see him actually taking that job to its full potential and taking it. Do I think he would be a great fit for Everton? Oh, absolutely. You'd be stupid not to think so. But that's not the person that I would trust to say, let's give him a 3-year contract and hope that he stays here all 3 years. Realistically, though, there are 3 names that come to mind. One was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, as I mentioned it earlier. That's a gentleman who spent majority of his career before he even came to Manchester United, managing a small team in Norway that nobody really paid much attention about. But if you really didn't pay much attention about them as well, you wouldn't have known about Erling Haaland and some other major names that came out of that club that are now big names in today's world, day and age in the world of football. Ole has dealt with probably one of the worst ownerships that there is in the Premier League when it comes to the Glazers family. I think he would have the patience to deal with that. He is somebody that has great attitude when it comes to youth and can develop a good program with the youth that he would be given at that point with Everton. I think he would be the type of guy that would probably have Everton laying anywhere between 7th and 12th spot for the next 3 years, but would still make them somewhat relevant again, rather than just completely disappear like Frank Lampard did. There are 2 other names that come to mind as well. The first one, you guys might not fully agree with me, but just thinking of his background and how he became relevant, is Mauricio.
don't agree.
Is Mauricio Pochettino.
No. Yeah, I don't agree.
Well, you may not agree, and that's completely
you
fine.
brought Pochettino's name in any English Premier League team that's fired a manager since we've started this show. It's
And
not
why wouldn't
happening.
you? And why wouldn't you?
Because it's not happening.
Okay, it might not be happening, but why wouldn't you? When you look at the story of Tottenham and the reason why they even became relevant again, that Mauricio Pochettino had everything to do with it. So why wouldn't you? When you're looking at Everton, a team that has barely any budget to work with, that needs to create some funding and all that stuff, this is the guy that you could potentially look at and say, sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin, create some funding, sell somebody like Jordan Pickford, who you can still sell at this point because he still has some incredible value in there. I let you talk, and let me finish. And you still got some other defenders in there as well. Like Jerry Mina could also be sold. He's not going to be a big value, but you can also sell him and start creating some funding towards some youth that you can develop in there. Probably stay just completely fine in the 10 to 13 spot and be completely fine, but still create some funding so that 3 years from there, you still now actually have a team that you can say, all right, I have some pieces that are worth some money. Now let's trade and create some bigger values here. Let's start creating something that can actually come out to create a system there. And that's somebody who I can picture doing that. Not a lot of responsibility like he had at PSG, where you have constantly somebody like the owner constantly breathing down your neck. Why isn't Messi started? Why isn't Neymar starting? What's going on with your relationship with Mbappe? He's at a lower scope of things than having all this pressure that he had before when he went to other teams. And that's why he kind of choked with the projects that he had. This is a guy that doesn't do very well under pressure. When you need somebody that can actually create a project instead, while still working with owners that are not willing to spend all that much money, this is a guy that's perfectly fine doing that. As long as he knows what the job is at in front of him, rather than being continuously pressured to deliver a result, Pochettino is completely fine there. And when it comes to Everton as itself, as a legacy of Everton, I mean, you wouldn't really be talking a new coach for Everton if it wasn't bringing back a legend, whether it's Wayne Rooney or Duncan Ferguson. Those are the two other names that come to mind for me.
Duncan Ferguson is,
Ferguson
probably.
Ferguson is a guy that has worked with the academy, has known the owners for years, has been there before. He was a caretaker for them. He was doing just fine until obviously the appointment of Frank Lampard. There's a guy that why not give him a chance? There's a guy that knows the ins and outs of Everton, breathes what Everton stands for.
He'd be willing to take it.
He'd be willing to take it.
Who would be willing to take it.
Exactly. Another guy who does not mind a project of 5 to 6 years long as he is being left alone to deal with the project rather than be, breathe down his neck. Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you look at Pochettino and the teams that he managed before, he was severely micromanaged. And this is why the guy failed consistently. You can't be a manager while being micromanaged by the ownership at all times, telling you who you need to start at all times, rather than you being the one to make those decisions. This is why the same thing with Tottenham as well. Pochettino left and they went through a circus of different managers until finally somebody that's there with a steady hand, and even him at times, he's thinking to himself if he's questioning his decision. And that's Antonio Conte. When Pochettino left, who was the first one that got appointed? Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho was a fucking roller coaster. Then you appointed Nuno Espirito Santo, and that was a complete fail in itself. I mean, it's there. The facts are there. So, when I mentioned Pochettino, everyone was like, oh, no, that's the worst thing that you can think of. But for Tottenham, he had 2 to 3 years to be able to be given a plan, and he executed it. We wouldn't know of Harry Kane right now. We wouldn't know of Heung-min Son right now. We wouldn't know of Lucas Moura. Hugo Lloris probably wouldn't be at Tottenham right now. He would probably already been sold and probably had issues with his consistency. But instead, he's now easily one of the top 5 goalies in the whole entire world. It's not mainly thanks to Pochettino, but it's mainly with part of the opportunities that he was presented under the Pochettino management.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
It could very well not happen, and I'm perfectly fine with it. But those are the 3 names that I can think of. Other than that, I mean, you can easily do the same exact thing that Newcastle did for years, and that's why they had to wait until finally having some sort of relevancy now, because they had to change owners and they have to bring a whole new schematic of players and spend some money to finally be somewhere within the top 4. The only other people that come to mind are the typical managers that come in just to take care of the project and hope that they can bring some results. That's Big Bruce, that's Sam Allardyce, that's all these other guys that kind of are set in their own ways, their old school ways, and not really caring if they relegate or if they just escape out of the relegation form.
See, Everton missed their chance. I think they could have got so much more money for Pickford 2 years ago.
I think they still can. I think there's some teams that still are looking for somebody to be their goalkeeper.
That's not what I was saying. I was saying they're still going to get, if they transferred him right now, they would get a good lump of some back. But in reality,
not the full value.
Agree, yeah. Everton could have got like 75 to 80 million for him in 2020. He's 28 now. I think realistically, if people aren't happy with their goaltending, perfect spot for him. Oh, geez, that defense, the midfield, really good in front. You just need a guy to stop the ball from going in the net. It's the team that Sam's wearing. They could have gone to 2 years ago. And they would have been great. They missed their chance. I think the big thing for Everton is they need to find it. When they're looking at managers, they need to realize 2 things. One, we can't just keep having a cycle of guys go through, because this has been a reoccurring thing since Ancelotti left, and they need a consistent guy in there. If they want to build something, they have to have consistency in there. I think if you get any of the names that we have mentioned, obviously besides Pochettino, because that's a pipe dream, it's not going to happen. I'll keep rephrasing this because it just won't happen. I think if they give their manager, even Ferguson is probably the right candidate for it. But it's so Everton like to not give it to a guy like that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I think the smart pick would be Ferguson, Nuno, or Bielsa in my mind. I think they go with Steve Dyche, the old Burnley manager. I think that's who they probably go with.
I mean, if you really want to bring, if you even consider interviewing Nuno Espirito Santo, I think that it's only fair that you consider interviewing people like Leighton Baines, maybe even Dean Smith, the previous Aston Villa coach, who managed Norwich, Domenico Tedesco, who used to be the manager for RB Salzburg. That's somebody who you should be interviewing as well. But if you're thinking of bringing Nuno Espirito Santo, I think you're rolling the dice there, knowing damn well that you could end almost as bad as Tottenham was starting to sink, or just be happy to be competing in the Championship League for about 3 more years.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm so glad I'm not a fan of this team, because imagine, like, don't get me wrong, Liverpool has been miserable up until maybe 5-6 years ago. Like imagine being Everton and not having won a Champions League or anything like that, and having to be represented by the the turnstile of managers coming in and out of the club. They just need consistency. And in order to do that, they need to build from the ground up. Start selling a couple pieces and just work your way back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, and they have pieces to sell. Like we've already talked about, Calvert-Lewin, boom. Pickford, boom. Goodness gracious, I'm drawing blanks on who else plays for Everton. It's been that kind of year for them.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can still get some value out of somebody like Doucouré, Allen. You can get some value out of those guys.
Oh yeah, no, Jesus, dude, I forgot they played there. To be honest with you,
You could get some value out of
that's what,
out
dude.
of Damari Gray. You can get some value out of
I was
Damari
just
Gray.
going to say they need to sell Damari Gray. He is too good for him to be playing there.
You could even get some value as well out of Townsend as well. That's another name that you can get a little bit of value off. Not, I wouldn't. If you're Everton, you're hoping for 50 million out of him. Good fucking luck, buddy. But
I would say you'd be looking to get 7.5. Yeah. No, I'd say you'd be lucky to get 7.5.
Yeah, I would even say, I would say as low as 7.5 to maybe 15 at the most.
Stretching, depending on what league.
But I mean, Everton's got some pieces they can sell. I mean, another major piece too that can actually be sold and create a lot of value for Everton is a simple Anthony Gordon. That's a name that's been targeted by Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham, Aston Villa. Why not sell him? If you need capital right now to create some funding to develop some other players, there's your answer.
I think that's another one they waited too long on, though. Because Chelsea and
should have sold them last year or the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's final thoughts. Go ahead. Final thoughts.
Everton Football Club, where we keep our players too long instead of getting great value for them.
Man, I feel terrible for a lot of the Everton fans that I know. I know Andrew, for example, I feel terrible for him.
For sure.
Neil, I feel terrible for him. I bet he's punching bird shit in Providence right now.
You know what? You know what I don't feel terrible for?
Who's that?
Me, because I had such a good week in the Premier League last week. Big brain.
Here we go. The one final week where
don't you even start.
Again,
don't you even start, because every single week that you've had a good week, it's the first thing you mention on the goddamn show. Don't even start.
Because you talk about predictions all the time. That's the very first thing you want to talk about. And records and predictions.
Bro, we're a prediction show. That is what we've become.
Okay, so you went 8-3 and I went 5-6. Congratulations. My record's still better than yours. 105 105 to 87 to 94 98.
Again, that's not what I'm talking about. See, this is what you do. I'm talking about one good thing, and I was about to give you credits on the scores that you called, but you know what? I'm not gonna bother. I'm not
No.
gonna
Let him
bother.
have his moment.
Who's
God,
that?
Let him have his moment.
it's
Okay.
always Diego.
Go ahead, Red Bush. Go ahead.
No, it's too late now.
Oh, I was about to make a marketing campaign for Red Bush. If you don't drink
No,
it,
I'm all
well,
set.
you're not living it.
I'm all set, you big nose toucan.
Thank you. Appreciate you. All right. Let's transition over to the Carabao Cup. We got some action going on this week as well. We know what the matchups look like. Southampton versus Newcastle, Norton Forest versus Manchester United. Score predictions. What are we thinking? Sam, we'll start with you.
I'll start with Southampton, Newcastle. I think a absolute battering. Like I'm going like a 4-0.
By who?
And-
Newcastle or Southampton?
What do you think?
It's not his question.
At this day and age, honestly,
we've heard a lot crazier.
Yeah. At
Have
this
you?
day,
Okay. So I'm going 4-0 Newcastle.
okay.
And then United Forest, I think United will easily take it, but not as much of a battering. I'm going to go with like a 3-1.
Okay. Jones, what are your thoughts?
A lot of confidence for something to be over in the first leg of the two-leg aggregate. I think Southampton's actually going to play Newcastle extremely tough. Newcastle tends to struggle on the road. Southampton at St. Mary's, Diego St. Mary's Stadium. Remember we talked about this last week. There's just something about that stadium. I think logistically tomorrow it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
Okay.
And then for Nottingham United, I think Nottingham gets out in front early, which is good for United. I think United finishes with a 2-1 victory because they won't be ahead and they won't get lackadaisical. They'll be on their toes and they'll be roaring to go the entire way.
All right.
If it was at United for the second leg, I think United's just going to thrash them. That's besides the point.
All right. So I'll say for the Southampton matchup against Newcastle, I'm going 1-0 Southampton. Reason why? Last 5 matches for Southampton, they've been 3-2. Newcastle's been 2-1. It's St. Mary's Stadium. Southampton, for some odd reason, have managed to actually do okay with defending their home territory versus Newcastle, who is, like Jones said, somewhat wishy-washy when it comes to the away game. So I'm going 1-0 Southampton, but I don't think anything bigger than of an upset than that. I think it's actually a very close matchup between the two. I think the home advantage just comes to play there for Southampton. And then Nottingham Forest versus Manchester United. I agree with Sam. I think a 3-1 kind of scoreline is something to be on the lookout for. I think United will come out very hungry and very disciplined. I think if you saw the after game interview from Everton Hag, you can tell that the guy was annoyed beyond annoyed. 2 games in a row where they're conceding at last minute in pivotal scores that could have kept them in the race in second place. Now with Casemiro back and being able to be part of the team, I think we'll see a different Manchester United than we've seen the past couple of weeks.
I think the only other thing I can add on to it is if you look at the last time Southampton and Newcastle played, Newcastle whapped them at St. Mary's 4-1. I think that the Southampton team's a little bit better, in better form than they were back in, I believe it was November. So taking that into consideration as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely would agree with you. Let's go over to the FA Cup. We got a lot of action going on this week with the FA Cup. What are some matches that obviously stand out for you, and what are some scorelines that you could predict could be major upsets to be happening in that tournament?
Who are you talking to?
Either one of you, whichever one of you wants to go first.
Well, I mean, I think the obvious one is City and Arsenal.
Okay. And what do you predict there?
See, it's one of these. I sit here and I look at it. It's at Etihad, right? Arsenal's.
Do we care that Foden probably isn't going to play?
No, because realistically, he's a non-factor nowadays for City.
I don't know about that.
Every time I watch Manchester City, he has nothing to do with anything for that team.
I could kind of agree with that too. Yeah,
If I'm them, I'm saying, hey, who wants to give me 65 million? I'll take him. Get him off
Well,
my
yeah,
hand.
that's fair. I would probably still get the money for him, and I don't think he's the player that City fans think he is, but I think, he makes an impact.
I think a couple things you have to look here. Arsenal has won their last 4 FA Cup games against City, and they've reached the final every time they've eliminated City, winning the trophy on the last 3 occasions, which was 71, 2017, and 2020. Their last FA Cup match against a fellow Premier League side was 1-0 at Southampton in 2020, 2021, I believe. They haven't lost consecutive in this competition since 2010 when they lost to Stoke, and then 2011 when they lost to United. So I think I would lean Arsenal.
I'm leaning Arsenal as well.
I'd say 2-1.
okay. I'm actually leaning the opposite side. I'm leaning City for an upset here. I think.
And I wouldn't even consider it an upset. I think it's an even thing, even battle there.
I mean, I think everybody is very high right now on Arsenal and seeing what they're, what you just brought up, their stat line so far throughout the years at the FA Cup. But I think there's 2 things to rule into consideration right now. City is a much more rested team right now. They had probably an easier matchup than Arsenal just had against a team that completely drained them off physically. I think when you are preparing within 4 days and probably 3, depending on how much rest these players actually need. I think when it comes to the more physical, able team right there, it's Manchester City. I think defensively, not that Manchester United caused a lot of issues to Arsenal, but they definitely exposed certain weaknesses that Arsenal still needs to improve. The wings is still something that they need to improve drastically on. And when you have a playmaker like Riyad Mahrez or maybe even an Ilkay Gundogan that can create plays out of nowhere to replace Phil Foden, those are kind of players that you definitely need to be on the lookout for. Kevin De Bruyne will definitely be a threat right down the middle. Jack Grealish could be a factor there for Manchester City. Not that I could say that he would be a factor, but could very well be. And then you're looking at who is Manchester City going to come out for forward with. Are they going to come out reserved and conservative with a Julian Alvarez up front? Or are they going to come out guns blazing and drop in Erling Haaland immediately with the hopes to close out conservatively? So if you're Arsenal, you kind of worry about this game in that tournament. Other than that, it could be as even as a draw. I wouldn't call it any other differently. I think another game that if you want to be on the lookout for, though, is I kind of like the matchup. Yeah, I was going to say that. I think I actually really like the even matchup between Brighton and Liverpool on Sunday. Normally we would say Liverpool would handle Brighton, but history has been there between these two. Brighton in the year where Liverpool was the most dominant team, which was, if I'm not mistaken, 2019, 2020. Brighton was the first one to bring an upset to Liverpool and defeat them at home. It's been a tough year for Liverpool, while it's been a developing year for Brighton. I don't think there's really a lot of differences between these 2 teams. I think it's actually a fair game. Whoever wins it is deserving of it. So that's me personally. I don't know if Sam, if you have anything else to add there.
I do think Liverpool will probably take this one, but like you said, it truly is an even matchup. I'm thinking like a 1-0 Liverpool.
Well, we got to think also too. They played last week or 2 weeks ago, 14th. Say 20. They played 9 days ago.
Yeah.
And Brighton beat them 3-0.
Well,
Motivation.
You would think that would motivate the team. I also thought we were going to lose to Wolves in the FA Cup. So my foresight on this, it's not promising.
I would say personally, though, the only advantage that Liverpool right now has over Brighton is that Brighton is having to adjust for the first second week, actually, without having Leandro Trossard available to their attack.
Also, Adam Lallana is probably not going to play either.
Exactly. So that's the only difference I could see for Liverpool being able to have a leg up over Brighton, potentially a 2-1 victory. But I think this is actually a very fair and even game between these two organizations in the FA Cup. Any final thoughts? I know the January transfer window has been kind of quiet, not a lot happening there. Are you guys expecting any kind of big moves to be happening in the next upcoming days or weeks, or you think this is the way the January transfer window is going to go?
Unfortunately, that's the way it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm going to give a bold take to end the show.
Okay.
Derby County in the FA Cup is going to beat West Ham. West Ham is going to fire David Moyes, and Wayne Rooney becomes the next West Ham manager.
Okay, kind of like that. That's if Everton doesn't reach out to him immediately and says, what's it going to take for you to be the manager?
Consistent team, more money, and freedom to sell whoever I please.
Listen, the fans are calling for his name right now. So this might be one of those circumstances. Yeah, this might be one of those areas where Everton finally actually listens to their fan base. Wouldn't be surprising though. It is the Premier League right now. Anything can happen. It is one of those years where you kind of are expecting something major to happen like that. Sam, any final thoughts at the moment?
My final thought is I have a bone to pick with you both for how you pronounce Felix's name.
Joao Felix?
I'm listening to this podcast while I'm on a walk, and all I hear is Yao, Yao, like Yao Ming.
Oh, that might have been Mr. Jones, because I can pronounce Joao. I can pronounce Joao just fine.
That's the mayonnaise in me. I can't help it.
Diego doesn't have it either, but his is at least like better.
I mean, I haven't spoken a word of Portuguese in probably 6 years. So kind of tough for me to pronounce a Portuguese name.
It's okay. Yours can stay, but Jones, we got to work on it.
Joao,
yeah. There was two O's in the name for a reason.
Yeah, the fuck did you say?
Joao.
Joao.
Close enough.
We'll work
Joao.
on it.
I'm gonna add a little flavor to it.
I think you need to step outside. I think you need to step outside of Southie area of Boston. Just a little bit outside.
Not me.
It's quite okay to drink something else than Truly's on a Sunday. Quite okay.
Excuse me. Truly's give me heartburn. Leave me alone.
Oh, okay. High noons on a Sunday. I'm sorry.
For you.
Listen, you leave me and my lovely nooners alone, please. Thank you. You were the one that said, "Oh, I could never drink any of these," and then fucking comes to a house party. What's he bring? High noons. Who would have thunk?
I wasn't trying to get drunk at all. Just trying to pretend like I was drinking while really not drinking. And that's exactly what I
never drink those.
The watermelon and the pineapple are.
Yeah.
See,
I would agree with that.
Gets it. Sam gets it. Watermelon's the way to go.
And you know what, Sam? Actually, funny enough, those were the two flavors I brought to his party.
No.
Yeah, it was.
Pineapple. You had the pineapple. I'll give you that.
And I had the watermelon.
I promise you did not.
I promise I did because I drank every single one of those.
Nope, because I looked at you and I said, "Why don't you have the watermelon, you uncultured swine?"
No, you didn't. You asked me why didn't I just get a 12-pack of watermelon, and I said no, I like the different
because
flavors.
It's what are we drinking? White Claws here? They don't just do 12 packs of watermelon and high noons. Come on, bud. Know your alcohol. Aren't you supposed to be like this big time DJ? That's not what I said. Trust me, aren't you supposed to be this big time DJ? Don't you know a thing or two while drinking?
I'm nobody. I just press play and hope that it sticks.
Yeah, here we go. There's the kid that sends me all his things. Does this sound good? Does this sound all right? Should I play this weekend?
I did that like once in 2022, 2023, and now this guy's making it sound like it's 52 weeks a year.
I got the receipts. Don't make me go to Twitter.
You know what?
I'll
I will
say-
bring you both something good to drink next time when you invite me. How about that?
Oh, what's it gonna be? Caipirinhas?
No, it's going to
Blackish.
be the Capriccio Sangria in the bottle, Diego.
Listen, if she brings me Capri Sun juice pouches, I'll love her until I can't breathe anymore. Which
I'm
could
on it.
happen any month now. I'm just waiting for an asthma attack to happen.
Oh, thank God I stole your inhaler.
Yeah, exactly. For me, final thoughts. I actually like your take on the West Ham. I think David Moyes is to be sacked any minute now. I just don't know if it's the FA Cup matchup or if it's when we come back to the Premier League. I'm not entirely sure.
If they lose to Derby County, I think it's gonna flip it.
Listen, I think we kind of undervalue Derby County for who they are, but I mean, to be frankly honest, I don't think we would be considering Wayne Rooney as a coach if he wasn't for the job that he did at Derby County. So
Potato, potato.
a little bit of credit there.
Potato, Jow and Yao.
More like Yao. How do you pronounce your name there, buddy?
I'm gonna start calling you Creesh.
Oh, that's horrendous. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that again.
Oh, that is excellent. Well,
How dare you?
with that little piece of
How
content
dare you
there, ladies and
disrespect me on my
gentlemen,
show?
we're ending season 2, episode 13 in that kind of fashion. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter at Podcast Card, on TikTok at Yellow Card Pod. Search us up on YouTube, on Spotify, or any of your listening platforms that you use in this day and age. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next week, Diego, Jones, Sam, it's been a pleasure, everybody.